This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 78, actor, comedian, and star of NBC's Sunnyside, Samba Schutte. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I'm the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey, and we want to wish you in the green tercel. Do they even make tercels anymore?
I don't know.
You on the highway. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. We're almost there, friends, and it's a great day in the studio because we have an awesome guest.
Yeah, we have the star of NBC's Sunnyside and comedian, speaks 4 languages, the immensely talented Samba Schutte. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, happy to be here. Now, I got to warn you, I'm wearing these shades not because I'm a Hollywood star, just because I have an eye infection.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay?
He took the shades off.
I'm allergic to cats, and I was doing this podcast the other day, and the guy had a cat who rubbed up on me, and this is what happened.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, it is called the Authentic
I'm not
Spiritual...
trying to be cool.
No,
yeah.
you're too cool by half already. You don't need shades, right? But it is the Authentic Spiritual Journey.
That's right.
So,
yeah. And cat allergies are very authentic. It's a good thing you're not here in Orlando, Samba, because I have 3 cats.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we can't be friends. We can't be friends, Dave.
I'm
sorry.
surprised you're not needing Claritin out in L.A. with the amount of cat hair that exists in my home.
No, I'm sure there's plenty of cats. I've been fine, but it's just when they rub up on me. I'm a dog person, but cats somehow they blind me literally.
They just gravitate towards you. See, cats know. Cats can tell people that are allergic. They just have to get on them.
Well, we're glad to be together today, and as always, we have spiritual conversations among friends. And Samba has a wonderful spiritual journey and amazing career that has already been amazing, but it's taking off even more. I think something about being in prime time at NBC. It's a great show, and I do, Samba, want to hear a little bit about the show, even though I watch it and I know about it. I want our listeners all over the world to know the work you're doing, especially because of the topic that it covers. So tell us a little bit about Sunnyside.
So Sunnyside is one of the most diverse shows on TV. Mm-hmm. It's a show about a group of immigrants who are trying to become American citizens. Mm-hmm. And it stars Kal Penn from the Harold and Kumar movies, and he worked for the Obama administration. And he plays a councilman, an ex-New York councilman who helps these guys become citizens. Mm-hmm. So it's funny, and at the same time, it deals with all topics, immigration. So it deals with, DACA, with ICE, with the green card marriage interviews, with shady lawyers, with the right to vote if you're not a registered citizen, and all these kind of things. And at the end of the day, we're trying to make people laugh, obviously. That's why it's an NBC sitcom.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to educate people on the path to citizenship and how immigrants are here not because they want something bad or they want to contribute to America. They genuinely love America. So I play one of the immigrants. I play an Ethiopian doctor who was a doctor back home, but in America, he has to work as a cab driver until he can become a citizen and get certified. And episodes were airing every Thursday, but now they're all available for free on NBC.com or the NBC app or on Hulu. And I hope people watch it because these kind of shows are important to make. It's really hard to have a show like this on a network television show because most people want to stay away from those kind of topics. But to have a show that educates and makes you laugh, I think it's important to support those kind of shows just so it makes room for more diverse voices to enter our living rooms.
I think that's very true. And, all of the stories in the show from each of the characters that are immigrants all of those are very common stories. The one character who has like 12 jobs, and again, the part you play, Hakeem, with who's both a doctor and a taxi driver. That's a very, very common story. I've known many, many immigrants that is the case. One very good friend who also became a minister who was from Cuba, but just an amazing scientist, but had quite a story.
The show, most of the actors are immigrants or children of immigrants, and the writers as well. And it's produced by Mike Schur, who does The Good Place and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Office. And so there's this nice ethical background to it, and there's this great team of people who really wanted to make a good show, a fun show. And so, I hope people tune in and check it out.
Yeah, one of the common threads to Mike Schur's work, in my observation, seems to be that people are inherently good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I know that was one of the tweaks, he made with The Office was, taking the Michael Scott character, instead of being insufferably just terrible, he's inherently good, flawed, but inherently good.
Yeah. And so it's funny because that's the running theme in all his shows, and especially in The Good Place. It's like, what makes us good? What makes us good people? And so he finds the best comedians out there, the best actors out there that can portray authentic human beings as diversely as possible. And then weaves in this whole ethical, cultural and diverse themes in there that we all learn what it is truly to be human and be the best version of ourselves. And so it's truly just great to be a part of it.
Well, and I think as human beings, we are all very complex. And I think with the way the media portrays immigrants, the news, politicians, we in this show try to be very careful about the us and them dynamic. As soon as you make somebody a them, you've dehumanized them, when in fact we are all human, and in fact all, as I believe, divine, as I know you agree with, that good that we're speaking of is that divine nature. That's within all of us. So I think we are all very complex, and I think the show does a great job of showing that. And again, it's so funny that it opens your heart and maybe makes a little room for you to be in a place of acceptance, whether you're really there yet or not. And that's what I think is so good about the show.
Well, thank you. In Africa, we have a saying that when you laugh with someone, you share your soul with them.
Yes.
And that's truly something I believe in, is laughter is the way into someone else's heart. And you learn and you grow together by laughing together. So even when things are tough or topics are tough, to be able to find the humor in those things really changes your perspective of them and helps you, I think, just lighten up and embrace it so you can grow and develop and evolve further and higher. So.
Yes. Our there's two things we really try to do on the show is to help people reawaken, to love, acceptance, and peace. And then individually, I help people grow, prosper, and evolve. That's it. That's the whole thing we're all trying to do. So, so I want you to talk too about, one of the reasons that I think you being in Sunnyside is such a great fit is because obviously you're an immigrant, you have a story, and it wasn't like you just woke up one day and were all of a sudden a Hollywood actor, that there's been a really tremendous journey for you. And because we are a spiritual show, I don't want you to feel like you have to cut anything short or edit anything you say about your journey, because whatever it is, we're really going to honor that. And I've heard a little bit of it here and there by watching you, and again, I've listened to some of your comedy, although some of it I think was in Dutch, so that was a little hard. But I want to hear a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are. Yeah.
So it all started with the word diversity, because my father is a white Dutch Catholic man, and my mother is a black Mauritanian Muslim woman.
Oh yeah.
And so my dad moved to Mauritania to work there, and my mom was volunteering there, and they got married, and they had me and my brothers and sisters. And then we all moved to Ethiopia, from Mauritania to Ethiopia. And that's where I grew up till I was 18 in Ethiopia. So we were raised to be very aware of my parents' religions, so both Christianity and Islam, and at the same time being very open to embracing different religions and people from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
My father does social work. My sisters, they do social work. So we were very socially aware and conscious from a very young age about, at the end of the day, it's not about what you believe in or what you need to do to connect to a higher source or to be the best person you can be. It's just about what you do and being of service to one another. So I grew up in Ethiopia till I was 18, and then went to Holland to study theater there. I always knew I wanted to become an actor. I didn't know I'd become a comedian first. So I moved to Holland, and I was studying theater, and there was an open mic at one of the open mic nights, and I wanted to do a funny monologue as an actor. And lo and behold, they only had a microphone, and I went on stage, and it turned out to become a stand-up comedy act. And so people were like, "Hey, you're a stand-up comedian now." I was like, "Oh, okay. I thought I was an actor." So I started doing stand-up comedy in English first, and then to really make a career for myself, I really had to learn Dutch.
I bet.
So that's really one of the most difficult languages you can ever imagine. I mean, just good morning is goeiemorgen. How are you is hoe gaat het, and good is goed. So already at 8 a.m. you're
The
clearing
phlegm,
all
you
the
get it going.
phlegm. Yeah. So started doing stand-up comedy there in Dutch, and then eventually I had a moment where I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I made a 5-year plan, not a la Stalin or some communist plan. It was just really, what do I want to achieve? Where do I see myself in 5 years? And my goals were to become a known comedian in Holland, to attract enough of a following, be on a TV show in Holland, which would then allow me to move to America, because I knew I wanted to move to LA to work in English.
Yes.
So I took part in a stand-up comedy, the biggest stand-up comedy competition in Holland, the biggest comedy competition in Holland. And I won both the jury and audience prizes, and that's what launched my career as a comedian in Holland. I had a few comedy specials there in Dutch, and then I was on the Dutch version of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Yes.
They had a Dutch version of that, which didn't do too well because Holland is very small as a country and everything is legal. So there's nothing really newsworthy, because everything is like, well, it's allowed, so I guess we're good. But what that did do is open doors for me to be able then to finally move to LA exactly 5 years after I had made that plan. So everything worked out so beautifully, and I moved here 9 years ago, and just wanted to be the best version of myself, to work in English and develop myself as an actor and a comedian.
Yeah, and as I was looking in your bio, I didn't realize you were engaged in video games and all of that. I mean, didn't you write a couple video games? Is that right? Is that part of your writing?
Yeah. So when I moved to LA, I started working as a comedian at the Comedy Store, but I had this visa. It's called the O1 visa for aliens of extraordinary ability, which sounds amazing, by the way.
It really does.
But it's a real name for a visa they give to athletes or people who have excelled in their field back home. So I thought, I'm here in America. I have this great visa. Things are going to roll. But unfortunately, when I started auditioning for TV shows, networks wouldn't take actors on that visa because it was a temporary visa. They'd only take actors who had a green card. So I couldn't do any TV. I had to wait till I could apply for my green card. So in the meantime, instead of putting my career on stall, I started doing comedy and I started doing commercials. But at the same time, I started developing my voiceover work and some writing work.
I see.
And so that's how I got involved in video games. So first just as a voiceover, and then some motion capture. And then for one of the video games, it was about African soldiers who fought for the French in World War II. The game is called Battlefield 5. And so my Mauritanian grandfather had fought for the French. But these African soldiers were erased from history, not acknowledged. And they helped win World War II for the French, but were removed from all photographs and video footage so that people would not know that they helped them out. So this game really wanted to show that hidden story. So I helped write it because I knew the stories from my grandfather and made it as authentic as possible. And it's one of the greatest things to see a story that is so close to you being told so authentically on even just a video game. People can learn from it while they're playing it. And that was really one of the most beautiful things I was able to do
I think it
in the
is.
video game world. Yeah. And and just now a video game was released called Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, in which I play a Wookiee. So that's
Hey.
fun.
Tell me,
That is cool.
What was the audition for the Wookiee part? What was that like?
Literally, this director, I'd worked with him on the Battlefield 5 video game, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, can you make Wookiee sounds?" So yeah, I just, instead of saying yes or no, I just sent him a video of me just going, and I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. And I was like, "Oh no, what did I do?"
Man, I really botched that Wookiee.
I know I should have. Oh man, I should have just said yes or no. And then literally after 3 weeks, I got a call sheet for, "Oh yeah, no, you're filming tomorrow. You're playing playing Choisik the Wookiee and motion capture and voice." I was like, "Oh my god, okay, that's so cool."
So I want to set the scene for our viewers and listeners. So you had like the suit, the spandex suit with the dots.
Yeah.
You're walking around making Chewbacca sounds.
Basically, so for video games, motion capture is really fascinating because yes, you wear this spandex suit with all these dots, and you wear a helmet camera, and there's all these dots on your face, and there's 360 cameras all around the room. This empty theater kind of stage where you have to use your imagination. Like you see a box, and they're like, "That's the tank," or you see a chair with a steering wheel, and that's your spaceship. So you really have to use your imagination. And so we're doing the scenes like a theater scene. And the cameras are capturing all our movement because of these dots. And then later on, the computer graphic guys add our characters or develop our characters. And it's really fascinating to see how that technology works.
Yeah,
because you have to use your imagination.
Yeah, I would imagine your theater background and your degree in that really probably prepared you for that. Because, I'm sure little black box shows where, you have to imagine much more than your budget or...
Yeah. Yes. I've had to do many theater plays where I just had a stick, and that had to be my sword and my horse and God knows what. So no, theater helps a lot with motion capture in video games. But I really had to do that just to make an earning because I could not work in TV. So finally, when I was able to apply for my green card, you're supposed to qualify for 3 out of the 10 criteria. I qualified for 9. So again, I was like, piece of cake. I'm going to get my green card. We're going to do this. And it took 2 years because it took such a long time to process because my birth certificate says Islamic Republic of Mauritania. And those are words you don't want to hear, especially if they're in Arabic on your birth certificate.
Yeah, those are flag words.
Yes, very much so. So for 2 years, I again had to wait and couldn't work. And at the same time, I had met my wife, and we couldn't marry because if we did, they'd say, "Oh, you're marrying for the green card," because my wife's American. She's from California. So we couldn't marry. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. Stuck in limbo for 2 years. At the same time, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease from the stress called vitiligo, where you start to turn white. My doctors were saying it's because my adrenal glands were overshot from performing too much comedy. I was just performing comedy to survive.
You're too darn funny.
Yeah, well, no, just performing too much. So my body started attacking itself, and they said there was no cure. So it was one of the most stressful times in my life, just trying to find faith in being patient and trusting that things will work out. So I decided not to sit down and just let myself turn into a white person. I decided to look up if there is a cure for vitiligo. And I found this man who wrote a book, My Victory Against Vitiligo, where he had it and he managed to treat himself. And he suggests all these different things. So I tried that out, very meticulously, changing some diet things, meditation. And slowly the color started to come back after 3 months. And I almost reversed it 100% after that. Yeah. I still just have a few spots here and there on my finger or my lip. But from hearing there's no cure to actually trusting your body is designed to heal and taking the steps to support it and healing, that was a transformative period, because then when that happened, my green card came through, I could marry, and finally I was able to audition for TV shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
8 years.
Oh,
Well, that's what I was thinking. In the middle of all that, there was so much that it would have been easy to feel like, oh my God, somebody is against me here. I'm not
Absolutely.
getting my green card. I've got this diagnosis. Why did I come here? I mean, that would be a normal human thing to think. You had to go through that some.
Yes, there was because the decision to come to LA was not an easy one.
Yes.
The decision was my career was going really well in Holland, but I knew I wanted to move to LA. So I had a moment just where I had to go into nature and just kind of talk to myself. And I had a conversation with a tree. This will sound crazy.
No.
But
No,
basically-
not to us.
okay.
No,
Not to us.
you're among friends.
You're among friends.
No, but basically just sat down by this old olive tree and I was asking like, how do you know you're on the right path? Like, how do you know things will work out? How do you know you have a goal, but how do you know you can trust it? And basically the analogy I got from this tree or this imagery was how grass starts growing underground and it always knows it's going to reach the light. But even though it has a rock underground or some obstacle, it always finds a way to grow around it and eventually sprout into the light. So it's the same with your passion, your desire. If something feels so right, pursue it, and the universe will help you, open doors for you to guide you there. And despite having any obstacles in your way, because it's your desire, because it's your goal, because it's what your soul really wants, trust that you will find a way to maneuver around the obstacle because you're meant to be there, out into the light. So it's basically just trust life. Put your intention out there and trust life and leap, and the universe will catch you. So that's the mentality I had when I moved to LA. I let everything go, burnt some bridges in Holland because people are like, you're crazy, you're leaving just like that, you're never going to work here again. But I had to trust this feeling. So moving here and then trusting that it was going to work out, but then being hit on the head with all these obstacles from visas to this and that and these, I was like, my God, what am I still doing here? Am I just was this the lesson? Okay, it's tough, and now go back home and you tried, or is it just stick through it and really show that you believe in this thing? Because do you see yourself doing anything else? And so I really had to reach deep and down inside and just know that this was where I wanted to be. This is what I wanted to do, and trust and have faith. And as hard as that was, just keep at it. And then lo and behold, things opened up. So it was just that mentality of trust life.
Yes.
And while you're in that ditch, try to do something that brings you joy. There's that quote, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors where there were only walls. And I really believe in that. If you're in a tough rut, just find that one thing or do something that brings you joy, whether it's walking in nature or painting or swimming or playing soccer or something that brings you joy. That will transform something for you. I really believe that.
Yes. And we will come back right after this. I want to hear more, and I want to investigate something a little bit with you and share something too. So thank you, friends, for joining us. We'll be right back after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few minutes, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by heading over to nacfl.com. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Again, welcome back. We are glad you're with us. Again, we have our guest today, actor, comedian, writer, Samba Schutte.
Voiceover talent.
Voiceover talent.
Still wearing shades because of my allergies.
Yes, exactly. Well, I want to go back to what you said about the tree because several things about that I really liked. One, I love that you trusted us enough to share that because most people would think that's kind of strange, but we are. We believe that the universe is alive and that every aspect of the universe has the potential to speak to us, to share with our soul and get guidance and illumination, for whatever might be going on in our lives. And part of my heritage is actually Native American, and so my history is Cherokee, and I'm a standard American mix of like English, Irish, Scottish, Cherokee Indian, and but a lot of my teaching around Mother Earth and around nature is exactly what you described. And so I believe all the indigenous peoples of the world are doing virtually the same thing. I mean, there's certainly different cultures, but and different practices within cultures for sure. But some of those basic things that you spoke of, like listening to the tree, talking to the tree, that would be, I can't imagine an indigenous culture not doing that. So what I wanted to ask you was that something from your growing up in Ethiopia, or was that just something that was intuitive to you?
A combination of both.
Yeah.
Because we grew up with a lot of spirituality in the house. Mm-hmm. So my dad's a Christian,
right,
and my mom's a Muslim, but they never forced us. They never forced us to choose a religion or practice a religion. They really encouraged us to investigate on our own. Mm-hmm. And so I read a lot about different spirituality and different teachings. And one of the books that really hit home first was Conversations with God, just because that book by Neil Donald Walsh, just because that book really reminded me of the power of the soul.
Yes.
And of how we are creators and we are all connected to one another, to a higher source, and that source runs through everything in nature. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up with a lot of nature around me, so it was very natural for me to feel connected to things. But it was really when I really started just trying to feel connected to everything that I trusted enough, to feel like, okay, I can take a walk and feel this tree's aura or energy, or I can trust that when I'm asking a question, I'm probably communicating with my higher self. But nature is such a great way to channel that, I feel. Mm-hmm. So it was very instinctive to sit by that old olive tree. It seemed like it had a lot of wisdom.
Yes,
and that I could get some answers.
Yes, I believe it does. Well, one of the reasons I asked, there's a great book called The Healing Wisdom of Africa, and there is a section in there about doing that very thing, about just really honoring the spirit of the tree and the tree teaching. And we just several months ago had a ceremony where we were around a fire, and then as part of the ceremony, each person got up and found their own tree to ask their own individual question, and then came back to share the wisdom. And of course, everybody had a different question, and everybody got just the answer they received. So I just wanted to speak about that a little bit, because I think sometimes, especially in today's world, everything kind of gets complicated. You don't have to have an app for that. You can everything you need spiritually is right here, and that we really teach that the soul is here and alive and here to grow and learn and prosper and move forward. And so learning to quiet the mind enough, to listen to that voice, I think is really so much of what we all need individually and what our culture needs as a whole. I really see people really lost and deluded. And I just wanted to lift that up a little bit because we couldn't all do that. I mean, you can be even in any city in America, even in the city, and find a tree and do that,
Yeah.
or as you mentioned, learn to meditate, to quiet the mind, to become present to what is.
Yeah. I
You
think
know.
more than anything, just being present. Like when I take a walk and I see a rose, as crazy as it may look to other people on the street, I take a moment to sniff it. That just that moment and that connection with nature grounds me, and
Yes.
it brings me here. Because yes, it's very loud out there, and it's very hard to just enjoy feeling your breath and your heartbeat.
Yes, yes. Well, I encourage people to be outside 15 minutes a day with their shoes off. So, I think the earth is very, very grounding, and I think again, it brings us into the moment. It brings us into, into consciousness of all that is. And that Neil Donald Walsh book is an incredible book. We will put it in the show notes, as well as Healing
Absolutely.
Wisdom of Africa, which is
Yep.
another that was a great book along my journey. But friends, I'm
Yeah.
saying all this, and I hope our listeners are understanding that what we're really saying is it is up to you to develop, your own awareness, your own spiritual journey and path, and that we can share our experiences, and we love to, but it's really up to each individual to do the work of their own soul, to find their own joy. So we really want to encourage you to find what really works for you. And as Samba said, and we've said many times on the show, to be in your joy, and see how that brings things forward.
Yeah, I think what really helped me was trying to find out what my fears are. Why do
Yep.
I have certain doubts here and there, and just to recognize them. So first, I made a list of what are my fears or insecurities, and I made a list, and it can be confronting, but it's really important just to do that, because then you see what's playing in a loop on your mind, or what things trigger certain choices, and then make a list of things I wanted to forgive other people for, and things I wanted to forgive myself for.
Yes.
And forgiveness is really powerful because it helps you let go of something. And as confronting as that list was, it was really eye-opening to be like, oh, I still carry that from when I was 12.
Yes.
This
Yes.
this kid bullied me, and because of that, I feel insecure when I do this, or when I act this way, or because of this. So what I had to do was go back inside and kind of connect with my 12-year-old self and tell them it's okay.
Yeah.
This is not who I am anymore. And forgive the guy who bullied me, but also forgive me for holding on to those feelings, and just keep practicing that, just knowing that today is a new day, and I can make new choices. I can be a new person, and I don't have to hold on to these little seeds that were planted in the past, but have grown into forests in our minds.
Yes. Yes.
And that helped a lot.
Yes, forgiveness is a huge key to soul freedom, in my view. And what our teaching on forgiveness is, very simply, as you're describing, that when we forgive, we are releasing this old toxic energy, because when we are holding on to past resentments, I actually heard it in 12-step, that resentment is like taking a poison and hoping someone else will die. And so when we're not in forgiveness, that's what we're doing, to ourselves, to our bodies, to our mental state. And so when we haven't forgiven, we're living as if this is still the reality. So like you say, things that happened when we were 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, we're holding on to in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s even. It's like, no, this is not who we are anymore. And I think until we drop those old ideas of ourselves, it is difficult to move forward on the journey, because we're bringing all this baggage with us, and that stuff is real heavy. And we can really convince ourselves that this is really true and this is who we are. So forgiveness is a huge path to freedom, in my view. A really great way to release the past, so we can move more into the good the universe has for us. I believe the universe loves us, and there is good for us. It's just stepping into it with a lot of faith and trust. So
And trusting your power to create good for yourself.
Yes, yes.
and not be a victim of circumstances. Because if you
Yeah.
look back at your whole life, if you just imagine yourself walking down a tunnel and just walking past all these photographs of moments of your life growing up, the good, the bad, the ugly, the sad, and you walk towards the end of the tunnel, you're fine. You're here today.
Here you are.
Everything has worked out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has worked out for you because you're still here.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that feeling of everything always works out one way or another, it just reinstates faith in the universe that, yeah, we're being supported. Like everything works out one way or another.
Right.
So trust that.
Right. And we all have life happen. I mean, one of the things that has happened, and as I've worked with people over so many years, that when people start realizing they are powerful co-creators, when something happens in life they don't expect, there's this big, what did I do to deserve this? And it's like, this is just life on life's terms. And life is going to happen. And when we are, trying to grow as a soul, often this energy comes in from the universe that says, are you sure?
Yeah.
and I like to call that second force, and I think that was what the experience you were describing in the first half of the show, of when all the stuff was up, and you're going, okay, am I really supposed to do this or not? So second force causes you to question everything. It's not just about like one little thing. It's like everything who I am is in question. And then when you move forward, you said to the universe, yes. And so then the universe could align, be with, and support, your next steps. And that's exactly what happened.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you find that just living out here in Orlando, we're very far from LA, but do you find that kind of the overt positivity and that mindset? Do you think that is not? I'm trying to figure out a good way to say this. Do you feel like you're an exception between actors or in Hollywood or entertainment, or do you find that most people have a relatively like positive kind of up outlook?
No.
That would be a no.
I mean, I could speak for musicians, but
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I started in the stand-up comedy world here in LA, and then acting. And, it's a city where a lot of people are fighting to achieve something. So there's a lot of desperation energy in the air. And so it's really hard to escape that vortex of negativity, of desperation, of jealousy, of envy, of intimidation. And it happens with artists, obviously, because, we are insecure. We are looking for validation from an audience, or we are looking for validation for our projects or our creativity. And so it's very natural for artists to feel that. And LA especially is, there are a lot of people who have that energy. So I'm not calling myself a standout in that. I had to work through certain issues to be where I am today. And I still deal with, insecurities sometimes when I audition for something or don't get a project. But I think I owe a lot to my upbringing and my diverse and cultural upbringing to be able to recognize those feelings when they hit, and be able to take a step back and be like, no, this is not who I am, and surround myself with positive, like-minded people, and do things that do bring me joy, and focus on that, because that part of LA is always going to be there, that vortex.
Always.
You just have to find a way to be in it and be strong enough to not be sucked into it. I always describe LA as a giant mirror, and it really makes you take a good look at yourself and question who you are and why you're here and what you're doing, and whatever you put out, you will receive. And it took a while to find that. It took a while to call LA home. But once I got married, and once, things started, once I made that decision, I'm meant to be here, and things started healing and falling into place, it felt like home. And I think that energy has helped me in my career as well.
Yeah. And I think that whether you're an actor, a musician, a preacher, or maybe an accountant or a bank teller, these are all universal struggles.
Well, and I think
securities.
we do. And I think, the thing for all of us to keep in mind, because, just because I'm in spiritual work, I have the same, the same struggle anybody would. We don't want to get too caught up in any kind of third dimension identity. It's like, yes, you're an actor and you're a comedian and you're a writer, but more than that, you're a soul.
Yeah.
And this is just what your soul is doing right now. This is not who you are even.
No.
Your work is an outpouring of what your soul is here to do, for sure, but you're more than your work. And so I think all of us just remembering that, even though we certainly, and certainly archetypally, there are always those influences that we're this, we're that, but the truth is we're much bigger than that. We are a soul, and we're unlimited, and we're expansive, and we are eternal. And so not getting too hooked into an identity, I think, helps us not take things too personally. And like you say, it's totally normal and totally human to go, I didn't get that part, or I didn't make that happen. Or even when we do, thinking that means something, so I think that's really important to remember, that we are a soul, even though we are doing these jobs, even though we are, and something so creative, you are like, so much of your soul is in it.
Yeah. But also to find the sense of humor in it and be able to laugh at yourself. I think that helps you get through it too, and distance yourself from the drama of it.
Yes.
So it helps to be a comedian.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I think, yes, being able to laugh at ourselves keeps us from taking life too seriously, and I think we can get into trouble when we do that. And Dave, I know, wanted to ask you a little bit about your journey through.
Yeah, born in Mauritania, raised in Ethiopia, then Holland, then the U.S. Just as a comedian, how do you kind of bob and weave between all the cultural axioms and everything? Has that been a challenge for you? Let alone Dutch to English and all of that.
Yeah, God, it's been quite a journey. I've been really fortunate to be able to perform on all these continents, and for all kinds of people, from villagers who have no running power to prime ministers, and astronauts. Those just that whole range of people. And humor is different in certain cultures. I mean, in Africa, I performed in South Africa for this in this little township where the whites were separated from the blacks, but I performed for the black community to try and bring them together. And they didn't speak the language I spoke, and so I only had my physical comedy to rely on to make them laugh. I stood on a cart. They had a cart in the middle of the village, and people gathered around, and I just started doing physical comedy. So walking like a drunk guy, or slipping, or being hit in the face, or, just something that could, language was not necessary for. And they were laughing and laughing and laughing. And so Africa is leans more into physical humor. In Holland, it was very intellectual.
I bet.
Like, okay, what are you trying to say with this joke? So that was interesting to see how that is. People don't laugh as readily. They're more thinkers.
Yeah.
That's why you don't get much laughter when you perform in Holland during a comedy show. You just get listeners. So that can be intimidating.
The fact that
hard.
they're not leaving, that means they like you.
No, they give you a standing ovation after, and then you're like, why didn't you laugh for 90 minutes? Oh, we didn't want to interrupt you. That's basically really what they're saying.
Oh my goodness.
We want to hear everything.
Yeah.
And then in America, people love to laugh and go out for a good time when they do comedy. So you better come with the jokes, at least 3-4 times a minute. So it's really interesting to learn all those differences in how you write a specific joke, or how you deliver a specific joke. But at the end of the day, my humor in all these cultures has always been about me and my journey and my cultural differences. And so that hasn't changed, because I think that's universal. Who am I? Where do I belong?
Yeah.
Who are you? And how do we get along? And how is your culture different from my culture? And just those observations are universal, I think, because it's what makes us human. It's just the way you deliver it in each continent that has those little differences I had to learn.
I think that's awesome. And that's part of actually why I wanted you on the show, because it is how you bring your authentic self. And I think your role in Sunnyside is awesome for that reason. I think I heard on one of your interviews that they actually even changed how the part was written once they met you. Is that true?
That's true. So originally the part was for a Somalian doctor. And I walked in, and Allison Jones was casting it, who cast, a bunch of golden comedies, even Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Golden Girls.
wow.
Just she's been around for a long
Forever.
time. All the Judd Apatow movies. And so I walked in and I said, hey, I used to watch your comedies in Ethiopia. We had one TV channel, and on Sundays they'd air Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Golden Girls. And she's like, what? So she wanted to hear my story. And then when she told the producers my story and I got the part, they're like, okay, you know what? We want to keep this part as authentic as possible. You're going to play an Ethiopian because you grew up there. I consider it home because it's 18 years of my life.
Sure.
So they made the character Ethiopian, changed his name, and I get to represent the first Ethiopian character on an American sitcom. So that's been such an honor, I think.
Yeah, talk about support from the universe. I think you can pretty much know that is support from the universe. And I know you're on a bit of a schedule, but just tell us, if you would like, what's next for you? Do you have any goals and dreams that we can kind of lift up with you and see with you of what's next for you?
So thank you. I mean, what's important right now is that hopefully people check out Sunnyside, because it's on Hulu, on NBC.com for free. And basically what that will do is give it enough support, hopefully, for a second season so we can do more of it. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, I'm going to keep acting, keep doing stand-up comedy, and my jokes and humor are all on my YouTube channel or my Instagram page. I always post clips. And my goal would be eventually to write a feature film.
Oh.
And that'd be nice, just to have that global perspective of humanity. And I think the universe gave me this background so I could do something with it. And so if you're given that gift, use it. And so I'm going to keep writing, keep creating, keep acting. And a few movies I did, indie films, are coming out in this new year. So I'm excited to see certain projects and things manifest. So
good. Well, we're on your side, and we know the universe is, and I just see that that's going to happen for you. I feel so good about that and the direction of your career. I know you're supported, and just know, if you're ever here, you got friends in Orlando.
Absolutely.
And we're happy to support you and the show. And we will also put your website. Why don't you just we'll put it in the notes, but why don't you tell everyone how to find more information about you?
Sure. So my website is www.sambaschutte.com. Samba, like the dance, Samba, Schutte, Schutte.com. And there's my link to my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for inspiring people and reminding them to find their bliss and live their joy.
Yes. Thank you so much, Samba. Have a great day. And thank you, listeners. As always, we appreciate you being with us, and especially during the holiday season. We hope you feel supported, lifted, and blessed, and know that we are just seeing God's highest and best in your life. We see you loving better, trusting the universe, and moving forward to do what's yours to do as you listen to the voice of your soul. So many, many blessings during this holiest of season. Thank you for joining us.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, and Shayla Mount. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.